and I immediately fell in love with cricket. Being a young player surrounded by all these 18-year-old lads, you know, they want to pick out your weaknesses. And I was thinking, oh God, how am I going to like fold t-shirts and put them in a bag in front of people, you know, because it looks so awkward. They'll stare at me the whole time. It got to the point where I wanted to start showing off my body. Every single bit of success I have in my life to date comes from.
So here we are joined by Gaz Stobart, competitive bodybuilder. I was excited about this one. Obviously, I've seen you kicking around the gym. And to anybody listening who can't see you, obviously you've got one arm. And when I saw that around the gym, and I saw you, I think it was on a lat pull down or something like that, I thought, in that particular time when I saw you, legit, I felt like death when I was in there. I was like, I didn't want to do this session. I looked across, I thought, I'm getting after it. So I just think that's why I've invited you onto the show. I want to kind of go into a bit of a mindset into sort of going into competitive bodybuilding. But before we get into all that, mate, what was your upbringing like and how did it all begin, your journey?
Pretty normal upbringing, to be fair. I grew up in a small town just outside of Durham called Willington. Got an older sister, Laura. She's 3 years older than me. Upbringing was pretty normal, you know. My parents separated quite young, separated when I was like 5 years old, so we were just brought up by my mum. She had chronic asthma, so she didn't work. So we kind of grew up in that kind of benefits system for a lot of the years. My school was 500 yards around the corner, so you know, me and my sister would walk to school every day, and it was pretty fine. You know, the upbringing was okay. Struggled a little bit in my younger years. Obviously, only having one arm, kids are very inquisitive, and a lot of the time, as you get older in your teenage years, that inquisitivity turns into nastiness and bullying, right? But I just became really tough, really strong. Used to fight a lot in school, and that kind of got rid of it. You know, I learned how to defend myself, but also be in a situation where people knew not to pick on me because I would defend myself and I'd fight back when I was needed to, and became really popular in school. I found that sport was the best outlet for me. Played football, basketball, rugby, everything like that. And then the ticking point for me was cricket. When I found cricket, I was 13 when I found cricket. I met a guy in school, an old friend of mine called James. And when people talk about like a tipping point or a point in your life that changes everything, every single bit of success I have in my life to date comes from meeting James. Right. People always find that really weird because I was 13, I was in school. But he played cricket and I'd never been interested in it. I always thought, I can't play a bat and ball sport with only one hand. You know, football, rugby was fine because I was quick, I was strong. Cricket for me was difficult and I wasn't interested at first. But I got to the summer in, I think, year 8 in school, and he said, why don't you come down, have a look around the ground, see us play, and see if you want to come and play. And I immediately fell in love with cricket. Not a lot of people know that my sporting history started in cricket. They think that I've just bodybuilded for years. Yeah. But I started playing cricket when I was 13, and it was difficult at first. Catching a ball, batting with one hand was a big challenge. But the cricketing community for me is so welcoming and so family orientated and so close knit that everyone just saw me as an equal and just pushed me to be the best version of cricket I was. You know, I became the under-18s captain, became the second team captain, played county level cricket, played a lot of first team cricket, and then as I got older, the England national team developed a physically disabled team. Trialled out for it, got accepted, and I was one of the first players to play an international disabled cricket tour. We went to Dubai and we played against Pakistan in a one-day series in a 2020 series, and that for me, everything based for me around cricket, all my success, confidence-wise, grew from playing cricket on a worldwide stage, and you know that helped me keep fit, keep mentally well, and allowed me to build such a huge friendship circle that I've still got today, basically.
What's up, people? If you're enjoying our content, give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and make sure you press that notification bell so you don't miss another episode. Can I ask, when you were playing, before you kind of got recognised and did the first ever disabled sort of game, were you playing for disabled teams at that point? So you were playing in a fully able team with one arm, and you were keeping up with that kind of standard?
Disabled cricket didn't exist.
So you were a captain of a team who...
Yeah, I was the under-18s captain, which was quite daunting because being a young player surrounded by all these 18-year-old lads, you know, they want to pick out your weaknesses.
Of course they do.
You know, so when I was in the field, the batsmen would always try and hit the ball to me because they thought that I would stumble and fall and miss it. But I've probably caught some of the greatest catches that Wellington, the club, have ever seen. You know, and for me, it was just the effort. And I've always had this mindset that I didn't want to be seen as a great disabled cricketer. I just wanted to be a great cricketer. And I've continued that with everything, you know, in all of my sporting careers, all of my life. I'd never wanted to be considered as the best disabled label. I just wanted to be considered one of the best players, one of the best.
It's funny you
fielders.
say that, you know, Gaz, because obviously visually looking at you, I can see, but you don't come across that way. Not that there's any particular way you should, but there's nothing that has ever stopped you, clearly. And I think that, again, credit to you for that, because a lot of people would have probably thought, look, I'm disabled, I can't do this, or I can't do that. But I want to just take a little bit further back in regards to the kind of the disability that you do have. Poland syndrome, you said, just before we came on air. Just for anyone who's listening or watching and don't know what that is, what is that?
So Poland syndrome is a deficiency in muscle in usually the left-hand side of males and usually the right-hand side of females. I don't know why it's gender specific. So I have no major pec, no pectoralis major in my left-hand side, and I'm missing part of my delt and an underdeveloped bicep and tricep. My arm stops just below the elbow on the left-hand side, so I'm quite lucky that I have an elbow joint, which really helps me in the gym to be able to grab stuff. And it was caused by an amniotic band. So when you're in the womb, you're in like that sac full of amniotic fluid. And I pushed my arm out of the sac. That caused it to band around it like an elastic band, like if you pushed your hand into a balloon. And that stopped the nutrients, the blood, the oxygen, everything getting to that limb, and it just stopped growing. The doctors think that happened around about 4 months into the pregnancy. And, you know, the doctors throughout the whole pregnancy with my mum were saying, you know, it should be abort the baby, you know, he's never going to be able to crawl, he's not going to be able to walk, he's going to be really underdeveloped in life. And my mum just didn't want that to happen, you know. She was in the mindset that if that was how I was born, then that's just how it is, you know. She would do whatever she could to make sure that my life was the best it was. And obviously I was born with a missing arm.
I think it's credit to you. I mean, I don't know whether you get the mindset from having the disability or you have the mindset anyway. You know, how were your parents? Like, were they trying to push you on and spur you on to do things and be included, or were they very kind of, you know, like, you know, you don't need to get involved in that game, you know, Gaz, it's all right if you don't want to? How were they?
My father, when he was still with my mother, was really against having any sort of assistance in the house. I remember at the time someone from the council came out and they wanted to fit a banister on the right-hand side of the stairs so I could hold it to get up and down the stairs. My father at the time came back and took it down because he didn't want, you know, people coming into the house and thinking that there was someone with a disability living there. My mum was neither here nor there with it, to be fair. She never treated me as disabled, and she just pushed me into everything normal. You know, all my school life was normal. She was more worried about how I felt about people looking, how I felt about people would treat me. So she got me to get a prosthetic arm when I was really young. So I worked with some doctors in Middlesbrough, and they developed a couple of different prosthetic arms. They developed one that had like battery powered operated, the elastic operated, wire operated. And it was strange because the doctor at the time, we had loads of tests to see how I could use them and what would work best. And every time he'd give me a task, building blocks or tying a shoe, I would take the arm off, fasten my lace, and then put the arm on afterwards, because I've always just figured out how to do stuff with what I have. You know, the elbow joint is really, really helpful. It allows me to grip stuff. I've always just had the mindset that if I see someone doing it that's abled and has two hands, I'll just copy what they do. You know, maybe I have to work around it and figure it out. But my parents were never really involved in much of my upbringing. We were close in my early years, and then we drifted apart pretty quickly. So everything was really independent. You know, me and my sister would get ourselves ready for school in the morning. We'd get our own breakfast. We would come home, sort our own tea, and that was from a really, really young age. So I've always had this kind of self-independence that I've carried through my life, and I just always wanted to just be accepted and be normal. So I never had the mindset I was disabled. I'm not registered as disabled. I'm not classed as disabled. I don't have any government assistance. The only difference in my life is I drive an automatic car. Everything else is completely regular.
The thing is, what I would ask to that is, do you think you are disabled though? Because you still have one arm. Do you get what I'm saying? So I know,
Yeah.
I understand you can do, and it's, again, it's fucking hell, it still blows me mind, mate. Some of the things I even complain about, or something I would struggle to do, and I'm like, fucking hell, like, oh. But then, because the fact is, you do have one arm, so like, does that ever, like, why aren't you getting government assistance? Why aren't you getting? I bet you there's a lot of things you could get from the government and a lot of help and stuff. What is the reason you choose not to? Like, why do you feel like you don't want to be classed as that? Because is that necessarily a bad thing if you do have a disability?
No, it's not a bad thing. It's very necessary, I think, in society. For me, I've made myself too able. That's the be all and end all of it. I've made sure that there's nothing I can't do.
Yeah.
You know, is it even growing up, you know, if I saw monkey bars, I'd work out how to do them, or a climbing frame, I'd figure out how to do them. So whenever people from, you know, the government or the hospital came out to check me, I was overly able. You know, every test, everything they gave me, I could do it. So there was no need for me to have assistance because there was people out there that needed it more than me. And that's just my mindset. It's not that I don't want to be seen as disabled. I just don't want to be seen as not having the ability to do something. I think.
Yeah, I think that's probably separate from your disability, isn't it? That is probably your mindset. Like, you've got that about you anyway. So regardless whether you were fully able or not, I think you're probably that way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it has affected me growing up. It's affected me in every part of my life, right? My first job, I was really panicky when I was like 17 because the only jobs available then were like shop work, right? And I was thinking, oh God, how am I going to like fold t-shirts and put them in a bag in front of people, you know, because it looks so awkward. They'll stare at me the whole time. And I went for an interview at a camping store, my first ever job when I was like 17. And I just thought, you know what, if they stare at me, who cares? You know, I'm working, I'm doing a job, I'm earning money so I can buy my cricket supplies. That's all I thought about. So I just did it, you know, and that for me was a ticking point because I realized that I had a fear. I just faced it, got on with it, stopped worrying so much about what people thought, and, you know, it worked wonders for me.
And do you, like, although you've kind of developed that thick skin, if you like, or that mindset, do you ever actually worry about what people think still?
100%, yeah, 100%.
Is it something you live with on a daily, like, or is he looking at me? Or?
Every single day, you know. I wake up, the first thing I used to do when I was younger was wear long sleeves. You know, I would never ever wear short sleeve because when people, it's human nature for people to stare at things that are different, right? If I see someone walking along the street with a missing leg or a missing arm, I'm going to stare at them. You know, it's just human nature to pick out, to look at things that are different. That's why we're such an intriguing set of humans. For me, I would always wear long sleeves, always wear hoodies, always wear anything that I could cover up and hide. And growing up, when I would meet new friends and new people, it took them a while to realize I only had one arm. You know, I think I was 21 and I went to a Halloween party once and I dressed as a zombie. And there was people there that I'd never met before. And they were amazed at my costume because they didn't know how I'd hid my arm. They were like, how have you tucked it in? How have you done it? I was like, I don't have one. They were like, no way, prove it, you know? Because I've always just managed to hide it so well. I mean,
it's a good party trick.
Yeah, I mean, still today I wear a sleeve. It's people are like, oh, does that, you know, compress the muscles or anything? For me, it's a mental thing. It darkens my arm down. It hides it away a little bit. I can you know, hide the end of my arm.
I get that.
And I always wear a sleeve now. And I get up in the morning, put a sleeve on. It's the first thing I do. Even with my fiance at home, you know, we go to bed together. You know, we go on holiday together. She doesn't understand why I wear it all the time, even when we're just in the house. But for me, it's just a comfort thing more than anything.
Yeah, of course.
Because when I look in the mirror, I see that I'm different. And as a bodybuilder, it's even worse, right? Because body dysmorphia in bodybuilding is massive. You know, you're never big enough, you're never lean enough, you're never tight enough. Multiply that by having a visual, physical disability, it sends that off the scales.
And that's what I wanted to get into, because I understand you've got the mindset and you've never wanted to be looked at differently, and you do things to kind of, not to cover it up, but you wear the sleeve, peace of mind and stuff. But has there ever been, or can you name some times when you've actually thought, wish this wasn't me, like I wish I could do that, this is a struggle? Or is it a first date when you've been like super self-conscious of, fuck, she's gonna see me, that fuck that I've only got one? Or have you just been like, nah, fuck it, if they're gonna like me, they're gonna like me regardless? How are you?
So for me, honesty is the best policy, right? So whenever I've been on a date, I've just messaged the girl before and said, look, I don't know if you've noticed in my photos or not, because I hide it in my photos, a lot of my photos, I turn to the right. I always sit on the right hand side of a seat if I'm in the restaurant with my fiance. I always message them first and say, look, I'm not sure if you're aware, but I was born with only one arm. And the responses I've had back are just, okay, so what? you know, and that for me kind of puts me in a peace of mind. I'm like, well, I'd find it weird if I went out with a girl with one hand, but that's just how we are as people. The only thing that ever made me a little bit disappointed, there was two stories in my life that I always come back to. One, it was my first day of sixth form in Durham. So I didn't know anyone really, a few classmates that moved to the sixth form with me. We went to like an outdoor skate place, and it was archery.
Right.
And I was like, shit, I can't do that. Like, I'm not going to be able to, I can't hold a bow and fire an arrow. There are certain things that I just can't do that you need two sets of grips for. And I was like shuffling my way to the back, hoping they'd run out of time. And then the instructor was like, right, come on, mate, you're going. I was like, no, I can't do it. He was like, don't be stupid. Come on, come and do it. Everyone's watching. Come and do it. And I was like, I can't do it.
Did he know
like,
you had one on?
No, he didn't know.
Right, okay. I
had like a big hoodie on, you know, I took my hands in my pockets because nobody there knew me, you know. I didn't want to like all the other students, 18-year-old students talking about it. And I was like, no, like I can't do it. And he was like, right, come on, I'll bring the ball to you. So he brought it over and I went, look, I've only got one arm, I can't grip it. And he was like, oh my God, I'm so immediate dread. Like all the colour washed from his face. He was really apologetic, took me to one side, you know, he was like, listen, we really apologise for that. We didn't know. Is there anything, you know, we can do to make you more comfortable? I was like, don't worry about it. I said, like, that's just life, that happens. You know, and that for me set me back massively because I was thinking, shit, he's just embarrassed me in front of like 30 18-year-olds that I've never met before. And it absolutely killed my confidence for weeks and weeks and weeks. And the second one, I was about 15 and I was at cricket training practice. And the coach was whacking balls miles up in the air and everyone was running for catches. And I was really good at catching, really, really good. And for some reason, I was just in this state of mind where I was just doubting myself, which is the worst thing ever in any sort of sport. And he whacked this ball up and I went to catch it. And it just hit my hands and fell out. And I just laid on the floor and I just started crying. You know, 15-year-old, dead strong, massive lad, I was just dead on the floor, crying my eyes out. And all the lads came around, they were like, are you all right? Did it hurt? Like they thought I'd broke my finger or something. They were like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I was like, how am I supposed to catch with a hand and an elbow? And I just completely lost it and went wild. And it took me a while to calm down. And then everyone came around me, they were like, listen, don't worry, like you'll get the next one. And I was like, I'm not doing it anymore, I'm not doing it. And I was sat at the edge and everyone was catching the ball. Everyone was dropping the ball. I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go back. If I drop it, I drop it. That's cricket, right? You don't catch every ball.
Yeah, of course.
And the coach at the time, a guy called Richard, he whacked the ball higher than anybody had took a catch before. And I was like, Jesus Christ. And I ran in and I caught it. And all the lads came around, patted me on the back. They were like, that's why you keep trying. That's why you keep trying. And again, another tipping point in my life, you know, I just thought, I'll just try it.
I think that's the thing though, like like when you were talking about when you were hiding it in the sleeve with the archery stuff, like you can't hide it forever. So it's almost like you've got to face it because so you didn't pull your in archery, but what are you going to do? Keep wearing, there's got to be a time when you're going to have to, and if you did that after 5 years, then showing everyone, it's probably even worse. So you're better off it's so much easier for me to say that, but I know this is mad and this is just my pure curiosity. Have you ever tried to use it? Like that hand? Like, I know, because you don't have, like, has it ever been I'll pick it up? Do you know what I mean? Is that a stupid thing?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, yeah, I sit and I think, right, if I could move my fingers, how would it feel? You know, I sit and do things like that, but I wasn't born with it, so I wouldn't know what it would feel like to use it. The old
myths, don't they? Like, if you lost your leg, sometimes
phantom limb
you can
syndrome.
still feel it and stuff. Like,
yeah,
is that a thing you've ever experienced in that respect? No?
Never, no, because my mindset is that I have two hands. You know, that's my mindset, because I've worked out ways to use it as a hand. Right, I can grip things, I can cut steak, I can fasten my shoes, tie my kids' shoes. You know, I can do everything. Play Xbox, you know, I'm a big gamer, play a load of PlayStation, loads of PC games at home. I've just worked out how to do it. You know, it takes me a few trial and errors, a couple of weeks to figure out how I can best do something. But I've just always figured it out, and it's
amazing, like.
No, it's never really affected.
Because even when, like I say, I've seen you around for a while now in the gym. And you don't look like you've got I know because you've got one on, but you don't act it. It's like you're doing everything I'm doing. I'm like, but it's crazy because from a mentality point of view, do you look at people with disabilities and think, fucking hell, I'm pleased I'm not like that? Or do you know what I mean? Or do you just appreciate it? So for instance, if you saw someone with no legs and they were in a wheelchair, would you be like, yeah, it could have been worse? Or do you just think, well, I'm sure they'll function without the legs? Like, how do you get what I'm saying? How does that go into you, like mentally? Like, how do you digest that kind of when you see something like that? Like, is it a case of like, because it's like anything in it. When when someone's in a worse position than you often feel grateful about, fucking hell, it could be worse. I know I certainly do. So like with you, is that how you feel as well? Like, yeah, well, I could have lost 2 arms at birth.
Absolutely. You know, absolutely. When you look at like blind and deaf people, I just think, Jesus, you know, there's so much in life that you'll miss if you're deaf or if you're blind. And I consider things more deeply now. I used to fight a lot in my younger days, and now I just think, if I throw a punch and break my hand, I'm knackered. I don't have another one. Like, you know, my fiance is going to have to help me get washed and go to the toilet and do all of this stuff, you know. So there's always people in worse positions, people in wheelchairs. Absolutely, it must be so difficult. But I pulled a guy in a wheelchair across the Amazon jungle, you know, and he came the whole way. You know, we were out there for like 6 months. We went from one side of the Pacific to the other in Ecuador, and he was in a wheelchair the whole time, you know, and we pulled it with ropes and we got through the Amazon jungle.
Mate, you've did so, like, I mean, before off air you've talked about, you know, you've played cricket in Australia, you know, Amazon jungle. You've done things that most people haven't done and they won't ever do in their lifetime. Would you say it's because of what you've had to face, the adversity and stuff? Would you say you've pushed yourself further, or do you think that is how you are?
Mixture of both, really.
Do you think?
You know, yeah, the Amazon jungle thing was for a BBC TV show. So the BBC back in like 2008 to like 2012, they had a huge push on like inclusivity and disability and stuff like that, you know. And it was for a TV show called Beyond Boundaries. They got 10 teenagers with different disabilities between 18 and 21, and they would like give them big challenges. A few years before, they like climbed a big volcano in Africa. And then this one was the first time they had teenagers on it, and it was to get from one side of the Amazon jungle to the other. And it was absolutely crazy, you know. We had a couple of deaf people, we had a couple of guys with no legs, I was missing an arm, there was a girl with cerebral palsy, you know, who really struggled with any motor skills. For me, you know, go back to my original story, everything comes from cricket for me. You know, that tipping point of James introduced me to cricket, that he showed me something that I shouldn't have been able to be good at. And I was good at it, right? And so that, for me, changed my mentality when I was that age, 13, that
maybe can do.
Maybe I'll just try. You know, maybe I will give it a go. Maybe I'll be good. Maybe I'll be bad. There's lots of things that I'm bad at. You know, really, there's lots of things that I can't do that I'm just not really good at. But the things that I am good at, I excel at. And you know, maybe if I had 2 hands, I'd be world class. You know, maybe if I had 2 hands, I'd be on an Olympia stage by now, or you know, I'd be playing professional cricket or whatever. And I think about that a lot. But everything for me comes from just trying, and it was just trying at cricket. I had a lot of coaches that pushed me to things. You know, my coach, Darren, he pushed me into the England squad. He said, there's an opportunity here, go and give it a go. I gave it a go. I was class at it. I played cricket for England.
I think that can be, you know, a lot of people who'll tune into this and see the clips on Instagram or whatever, like, I think a lot of inspiration can be took, because I do think a lot of people are just pussies. In general, I think I genuinely, and I mean that, because I've met a lot of people who face some real bad things. I mean, for instance, we had a guy on who's just did 22 years in death row, and I don't know if you saw it, but mate, I mean, he lived next door to Buffalo Bill. Do you know what I mean? You can only imagine and he was innocent. Yeah. And it's like, and now he's living with something. He's got like a brain. There's some kind of disease he's battling now, which he's going to die basically from it. And it's like, you've had 22 years of your life taken away from you. You were innocent. You never did it. You were framed. And now something's going to kill you that you can't control. You can't even imagine. Like, and then I look at someone like yourself and I'm like, fuck me, I'd take you any day of the week. Do you know what I mean? So there's always like, and I feel like a lot of people, like, they'll sort of bitch out of things or they'll pussy out of things. And I know I don't mean to use them words in that way, but I think it is right. Would you agree? Like, I'm sure you look at people and think, I mean, has that ever happened to you? Do you ever say that to anyone when someone's complaining about something? It's like, mate, how am I? Like, I've got a running joke with one of my mates here, Kurt. And because I've got a little one, just 2, well, nearly 2. And there's a thing like, he'll say he's tired. I'm like, mate, you can't be tired. I'm like, mate, I've had 2 hours kit, man. Like, and he's like, I know, but I haven't, and I'm still tired. I'm like, I get that. But when you're battling tiredness and you're deprived from sleep, you're like, you don't give a shit. You're like, I know, but it's worse for me. But you kind of have to understand, no, not everyone's going to be in your situation. So how do you feel when you see other people and, you know, they sort of complain about trivial things and stuff? Like, how do you look at that? Do you think it's worse for me, or do you not? Do you just think each of their own?
Each their own, but a lot of things are bad choices, right? A lot of things are just bad choices. Like, my friends always joke because I have this real issue with obesity, right? And it's people people are like, oh, you know, I can't lose the weight. I've tried to lose the weight, whatever. You can lose the weight. You know, there's infinite amount of scientific studies out there that energy out versus energy in allows you to lose weight.
Yeah.
And you get these people that really complain, you know, they can't do certain things or they can't go certain places because they're obese. And I just think you've chose that path, right? You've made yourself obese. It's hard to put on weight. I've tried it in the off season. You know, it's difficult to eat the amount of food that you need to put on weight. And a lot of it's personal choice. You know, you see people come to the gym. For me, that's amazing. You know, they've made the choice that they want to improve their life. I read a book. Well, I listened to an audio book during the first lockdown. It was by a guy called Rich Roll. And he's like an ultra runner. And he's done like these crazy marathons all around the world, right? And it really hit me deep because I went through a period between 2018 and the first lockdown where my long-term relationship with my kid's mum ended. It was the first time that I had to live by myself, start everything again, empty house, found a house, moved into it, had to furnish it myself over the course of whenever. And I put on loads of weight, all my hair fell out. I was just, I wouldn't say depressed, but I was just in a place where I didn't want to do anything. You know, I'd get home from work at night, I'd just sit there and watch telly. I wouldn't do anything. And this guy, Rich Roll, he told a story about how he got interested in ultra running because he was a corporate lawyer. He'd head home from work every night in his fancy car, he'd eat a cheeseburger, have a beer, and then huff and puff up the stairs to bed. His kids wanted to play outside and he was too tired to do so. And that for me like really hit a chord because I thought, if my son wants me to chase after him on his bike and I'm sat here, overweight, out of breath, smoking at the time, I'm not going to be able to do it.
Yeah,
you know,
you almost feel like what a selfish arsehole.
I'm missing out on all of these
you know
opportunities because I've chose to just be a slob, basically.
You know what, mate? I had a conversation. I can't remember who I had a conversation with, but recently about this. And if you've got a child and you're not living to benefit that child, and what are you doing? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, what kind of dickhead does that? Do you know what I mean? Realistically, like, surely the whole purpose then, if you're bringing someone into the world, is to kind of serve that person regardless. So it's like, again, it's like with what you've kind of battled in your adversity and stuff. What was really like, what kind of blew me away from the story of when you'd hide your arm in a hoodie and the rest of it, to stepping on stage in front of people, bodybuilding. How the fuck do you go from that bloke to that bloke? Tell us about
that. So I kind of had I was never into bodybuilding. You know, I worked in the fitness industry and then I stepped away into the business world, and I was never interested in bodybuilding, but I always wanted to have big arms and big shoulders and look good in a shirt, right? And then after the lockdown ended, I realized that Ultraflex in Durham opened, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to get back into it. I was doing a lot of running. I'd lost a lot of weight. I wanted to get back into the gym. No intention of bodybuilding, no intention of getting on stage. And I went into the gym and I started training, and the atmosphere in there and the people you're surrounded with, it just sets you in awe, right? You see the bodybuilders in there, you just think, Jesus, like, you look class, you look amazing, right? And then I bumped into a guy that I used to work with, who's my current coach now, Graham, and he was like, Jesus, Gaz, like, you look massive. Like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just eating everything and just lifting weights for the hell of it. He was like, he tried me to get to compete years ago. He was like, why don't you compete? You know, you'll blow people away, you'll amaze people. You know, this one-arm guy on stage, you'll absolutely blow people away. And I was like, not really interested in it, to be honest. It's a bit like, it's not me. I don't want to be in there in a thong and tanned up and on stage. It's like, no, mate, honestly, like, you've got great structure, great work ethic. Let's just, you know, give it a year, see what you like. And this was in like September 2021. I was like, okay, whatever, like, I'll do it, you know, I'll stick to a diet plan, I'll train. And within 3 or 4 months, I saw like huge changes in my physique, you know. I'd absolutely blew up, my waist had trimmed down, my legs had blown out, my shoulders had blown out, and I was like, maybe I will do it, you know. I started sending him updates over text, and he was like, let me coach you. I was like, okay, sure, so come and coach me, you know. And he's like an old style 90s golden era coach. He was a big competitor in the NABBA years ago. His wife's IFBB pro.
Right.
And I was like, okay, let's do it. And it just kind of took on from there. And the more I saw my body change, the more confident I got. And it was like a weird switch in my head because it got to the point where I wanted to start showing off my body.
Yeah.
You know, never ever have I ever worn muscle vest
because
in the gym.
you don't wear sleeves and stuff on your social media.
No.
You show it off, don't you? So it's like even that side of things, that's mad, that.
Yeah, because for me, I just thought, right, I've put in all of this work. What's the point of keeping it under a hoodie or keeping it under trousers? Like, I want to show it off, right?
Of course you do.
And then my other mindset is, I also want to show people that, like, anyone can achieve something, right? I'm not a very inspirational person, I don't think. Yeah. I don't go out there to inspire people. So I'm always taken back when people come to me and go, mate, you're so inspiring. Like,
do you get that a lot?
Quite a lot, yeah, especially in the gym. In the gym, more than anywhere else. On the cricket field, I used to get a heck of a lot. But in the gym, probably every other session, someone will come up to me and go, oh, I wasn't going to come to the gym tonight to train, but, you know, I've seen you over there now, and I just think, like, what a dickhead I am.
Because you know
like,
what's crazy about that? It's funny because, well, there's a few people, I'm sure you know, who go to Flex who have certain disabilities and stuff. But it's like, I feel like, again, you and there's thousands of people who get into gyms and stuff now, but I feel like it is because of you doing them things and putting yourself on social that the guy who's 16-year-old now thinking about training feels like not fucking going into a gym in his life. You've literally let him walk through the door. So that's the shit that I get a buzz from. Do you get what I'm saying? Because I'll try and inspire people in my own way, but I don't have that. I mean, yeah, sure, I face some adversity. There's certain things I've had to, overcome. But at the same time, I understand, fucking hell, you look at someone like yourself, it's like, even tying your shoelaces, man, like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, there's a step, he's not just walking in because he's confident. He's had to physically go through layers of shit to get to this scenario. Do you know what I mean? You were talking about, I mean, it instantly went into my mind then. I know these things are probably small to me, but life-changing to you. You're getting married, wedding ring. I bet you're all that goes through your mind.
Going through it now. I get married next October. And we were talking about this in bed last night.
What actually happens with that, by the way?
You just wear it on your right hand.
Just on your right hand.
Right hand. Yeah, me and Kaylee were talking about it last night. She was saying, because we've got like this list of wedding plans. We get married next October. And she was saying, oh, you still haven't picked out a ring. And I just make jokes all the time with Kaylee about having one hand. And I was like, well, I don't have a hand, so what's the point? She was like, it's the ceremony, it's the blessing of the rings, it has to be done. The wedding means nothing without it. And I was like, all right. She's like, just wear it on your right hand, like no one cares. Like, it has to form the ceremony.
Here's a funny story for you guys, right? So when I proposed to me missus on Holy Island, just up the road there, I proposed to her, right? I was like, will you marry us? All that type of shit. Put the ring on. And anyway, I took some photos and stuff. Like, I'd hid the camera like on the wheel of the car. And anyway, I posted them on socials, mate. I looked at her last. I went, if you post them fucking photos, she went, I went, you can't believe this. I went, I put the ring on your wrong hand. And I legit did. Like, not many people know that, but I did. So inches get on all the, and I'm like, what are you doing? That's on the wrong hand. So so there you go. Like, and not a single person mentioned it.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? The ring was on the wrong hand, and for a girl, it's everything.
Absolutely.
So it just goes to show that people genuinely don't really care anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like
that was something that I've realised. Really, no one cares. People have enough going on in their life. The people that talk about you the most probably your biggest fans, but also your worst enemies, right? People that are negative about you, they have never achieved anything.
Yeah, of course.
They're always the people that win don't talk about other people. Yeah. I've picked that up throughout my life a lot in business and in the gym industry, And you see it on social media. You'll see like professional bodybuilders post an update pic. There'll be some average Joe, and his profile pictures holding a can of Fosters, with his belly out. And he's like, you've got no legs, and you just think, whatever, you just pass over them. Luckily, I've had no negativity in that aspect. And that, for me, the bodybuilding world is very nasty, but very, very nice at the same time.
I think it's people who understand it.
Yeah, if you're in the industry, I think everybody comes together as one big family.
Yeah.
I've only had positive responses from people in the gym, overly positive responses. And like I said before, I don't particularly set out to inspire people. I love the fact that I do. And for me, I would rather inspire a generation of kids than a generation of adults. I know that sounds strange. But I rather would, my two kids play cricket on a Friday night at All Stars. I've now started helping out with the coaches, and and I'm not just doing it to make them better cricketers, right? I'm doing it so they see someone like me that's had success at cricket, and that inspires them a little bit. There might be a couple of kids that are slightly overweight, or a couple of kids that don't have the motor skills to make them the best in the group. But they see me with one hand catching the ball and bowling the ball and hitting the ball, and they just think, I want them to think, all right, maybe I
think that's the beauty, mate.
Like this.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the thing. I mean, especially when you're saying there about the community as well. Like, obviously, with what I do at the Content PT, I create content for bodybuilders. And I'm doing this on a daily basis now. Everyone's sound. It's mad. Whereas I've worked in some industries, mate, doing the same thing, and it's like, fucking hell. Well, I don't want you working with him, and he can't. And it's like a different. But in bodybuilding, it's got that nice camaraderie feel to it. I just want to ask, where are you going? What's the future like for you guys?
No idea at all.
Have you more plans to compete? Obviously, you're competing. Did you say you're competing in September?
Yeah, I'm 9.5 weeks out of my first show now. The goal is to compete at the PCA British finals. I came second last year. So for me, I want to go there and try and come first. I won't be competing next year as I'm getting married. You know, those competitive bodybuilders understand how tough a prep is. You know, I'm getting married next October. That's right in my competing season. And I'm not going to prep into a wedding because she'd kill me. It probably wouldn't be a wedding because it's so stressful, right? We can't go out. We can't eat the food we want. We can't we can't go to the pub with our friends. We can't go to parties. So you sacrifice a lot as a competitive bodybuilder. For me, I'm going to go back and play cricket next year. I've had 10 years out of playing cricket, which is crazy to me because cricket was everything in my life. But when my daughter was born, my son was born 18 months later, I couldn't give up full weekends to go and play cricket when they were young. I didn't want to miss out on them early development years. And it's very time constraining cricket because you turn up to the pitch at 11, you leave at 8 o'clock at night on a Saturday. And I work Monday to Friday. So I'm losing that weekend day immediately with time with my kids. I didn't want to give that up. My kids are a little bit older now, and next year they're probably going to come with me, and they'll sit and they'll watch the game. They'll have their iPads or whatever. So, and they'll see me playing, which hopefully will inspire them a little bit as well. So for me, I want to get back into cricket next year. But what I would like to do, I can't do it right now because it's too big of a risk with everything in my personal life that's going on, marriage, house, getting the family ready. I can't risk my income and my business that I currently have. But I would love to be in a position where I can train or coach or develop tools to help disabled athletes in the gym.
100%. That's what I think is the way to go.
That's what I'd like to do. I'd like to be more involved in any disabled sport, if that comes down to, you know, strength and conditioning coaches for disabled football or disabled cricket, disabled rugby, Paralympics. Because what I've found, every single sport that I've played, I've never had anyone that's been disabled that's been on a member of coaching staff.
Yeah.
And that threw me off massively.
Well, it would, considering you're not, like, even when you were partaking in sport, there weren't disabled sports when you were younger until you got into that. Did you get what I'm saying?
It really threw me off because I just think, how can you be telling us disabled athletes the best way to do something when you have never had to overcome an obstacle or experience this as a disabled person, right? You get, you know, a disabled cricketer. I've got disabled cricket coaches, batting coaches, trying to teach me how to bat with their two hands, saying, "Oh, just hold it like this, hold it like that." I'm like,
that blows me mind.
It's impossible. I can't do it. And it's the same in the gym industry. It's very rare that you get a lot of disabled bodybuilding coaches. There's a few that I follow on Instagram. I'll be competing with one in Yorkshire in October. He's a disabled guy. Mm-hmm. He'll be on stage with me hopefully in Yorkshire, which is fantastic. The more people we get in that disability arena, the better. But I just want the ability to help people, because my biggest gripe with people with disabilities in the gym, they either only do things that are simple or only do things that don't require them to use their disability. Mm-hmm. What I mean is, when I started training in the gym, I would only train my right-hand side. I would only bench press single dumbbells. I would only do single arm lat pull downs because I couldn't work out how to engage my left-hand side. I then got a prosthetic built to bench press, which was massive, balanced me right out, balanced my shoulders, balanced my chest the best as could. And then I developed a strongman strap so I could pull things. And now any exercise that someone does in the gym with two hands, I can replicate. I might have to modify the position, or I might have to modify something about the way I sit or about how I hold a bar, hold a dumbbell, but I can replicate any movement in the gym. There's nothing I can't do. I can deadlift, I can pull up, I can chin up, bench press, anything you can do in the gym, I can now replicate in my own way. You get a lot of people with disabilities that can
just dodge it,
but don't try it.
Yeah.
Whether that's a fear of embarrassment or a fear of failure, but they just don't try it. And I just think you're going to get so much more out of your exercises. You're going to 1,000 times increase your confidence because you're going to figure out you can do it. And it's just going to improve every single aspect of your life. So I would really like to do that, because at the moment there's nothing out there. Mm-hmm. There's nothing out there specifically for disabled weightlifters.
Didn't expose you.
And you know, I mean, you've got the disabled strongman competitions now. You know, that's something that I'd like to try my hand at next year. Britain's strongest disabled man or England's strongest disabled man, I'd like to try my hand at that. Anything where I can compete and compete against other people in similar situations, for me is fantastic.
Guys, honestly, mate, pure inspiration. Like, I wish I could talk to you for hours, mate. I didn't have the time, but I wish I could, because honestly, like, again, speaking to someone like yourself is just, it makes me feel like I need to do 20 podcasts today, not just, do you know what I mean? So I appreciate that, mate. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it, mate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Cheers.